Yes, good morning, everybody, to this smart session we have together on quite a complex title. My name is Christoph Meyer. I'm Managing Director of the Platin Coaching Network in Switzerland. And I was asked just before introducing the panel speakers to you to just frame the scope of this session. Maybe that life cycle, coaching, these are some new terms in the context of the European Commission. And let me start with a small introduction to it. Reindustrialization and innovation are correlated. And there is a positive correlation between innovation and employment, job creation. But this positive correlation has two negative side effects. Positive means as well, if innovation performance is lower, you risk to lose jobs. That's the first part. And the second one, it will be difficult to compensate the losses of jobs in these areas by the new jobs we can generate in high-performing sectors. I show you the example in our region in Switzerland, where we analyzed development of employment in relationship to innovation performance over 10 years. And what you can see first is the big majority of our jobs in industry are in sectors of lower innovation performance. A second issue is that during these 10 years, we lost almost 60,000 jobs in this low-performing sector. So it was a deindustrialization, and we generated about 30 new jobs in these emerging high-performance sectors. We have a problem. So jobs move to the service sector, mainly to health sector, and to education and training. It's a political issue. The problem is worse because we can see, particularly in our markets, the main target markets of these emerging high-performing sectors are the sectors in the low-performing areas. It's the car manufacturing, it's in Switzerland the watch industry, it's whatever you take, construction areas. If we lose this part, we will lose the markets for the big new emerging companies. It's an issue. One conclusion is an innovation system should be more inclusive, and we should also bring in more companies on the lower part of this diagram. Who are these people? These are the people you will meet if you go broader to the SMEs, to the companies. And if you ask about their innovation ideas, you will see they have everywhere innovation ideas. But you will see that 50% or more of those ideas won't be implemented because of constraints. Then you start to analyze the needs of these people. Why can't they go forward in the innovation? And you will see a pattern of needs, of constraints, of challenges they have. Now the question is, are there some segments with similar patterns around these people here? Difficult to analyze. What came out over many years of experience is that a common pattern you can see along the life cycle of these companies. Where we have on the left side more the startup scene. They are moving from the seed, most of them to a pilot, a project business, and some of them to upscaling and maybe to expansion. Then you have on the right hand side the established companies. And the established companies, most of them in a consolidation phase, price pressure. Some of them would like to escape, renew, get newly positioned on the market. These are drivers of the reindustrialization of Europe. Their needs are different and challenges, so we cannot put them all in the same basket. Have a look at the business innovation vectors, 4 vectors which it makes the difference on the market, generate new values for the customer. Of course, it's the offering. It's the organization. the process. It's this way they distribute it, and it's the way they interact with customer or choose new customers. And what can you see over the life cycle? Their pattern of challenges and focus is totally different. So we cannot have one basket approach for all companies. We need a highly differentiated approach. Now let me go to the challenge of reindustrialization. We have to bring these companies forward along this life cycle approach. We need more startups moving from the seed stage to the first project realizations on the markets, and then to upscaling to niche markets, to bigger markets. And some of them, we move to expansion. They become a real industry. We have to manage in innovation system these transitions. And established companies, the most promising companies are those who like to escape the situation of consolidation, to renew with really well-mastered new approaches, renew themselves on the markets. These are the two big trajectories we have to attract. Now we have to go even further down. Every company, the faces you see, they have their own specific situations. That's where then the coaching system enters, that we offer them a very customized approach, taking care of their situation and on their specific needs. Just having here, I had a look at the SME instrument about feedbacks of Slovakian companies, Stefan. Very positive impacts on coaching. This is a company, a young company, moving from project to upscaling what they got out from coaching. Another company here, an established company in a very deep repositioning phase. This is feedback, benefit out from companies, and that's what we have to achieve. Now I came to the panel. Today we have now several practices around these big topics of reindustrialization of Europe. All of them have one thing in common. They're going down individually to each company, analyze what they need, and they help them to improve their situation. I just introduced now first Eva Dietrich. Eva Dietrich was a senior consultant at Kearney. She's member of the working group of ISO working group on innovation management, and she's managing director of the Improve. This is the European Innovation Management Academy, and she has a very long track record on that side. Then we have the second speaker, Adela Radlilova. Adela, she is from the Brno region, South Moravia region. She has many years experience in cooperation with SMEs, setting up projects, and she some years ago introduced this coaching scheme to a broader circle of SMEs. She will speak about her experience and their experience. We have Arthur Monks. Arthur Monks, he's an industry guy. He comes from industry. And he has a certain, you can see, experience, and is willing to share his experience with younger companies and experience in startups today with founding, and he became a coach of the SME instrument, which is the next speaker, Pierre Roubaud. He's the big manager of the coaching scheme of the SME instrument program of the European Union. And this is a new instrument about this experience. Then Stefan Vratny, he is from the region here. He is CEO of the Business Innovation Center, the BIC, here in Bratislava, and is also managing the EN, Enterprise Europe Network of Slovakia. He's strongly involved also in politics, so it seems that the noise goes up from the ground to the politics. We all hope that this will be the case. And he's strongly also personally involved on the SME level and capacity, business innovation management capacity building. So we have a very nice panel today. May I ask Eva to give an insight in your activities. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I just remember you, if you have questions, please send them electronically. Otherwise, you will have the microphone afterwards for an interaction.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to everybody here. As Christoph introduced me, my name is Eva Diedrichs, managing the startup, small company, Improve Innovation Management Academy. And I wish we would have here people from Asia, people from Africa, people from Americas, because they would give us also a very interesting view on what they see in Europe. So I will take over a little bit the view on the inside-out perspective. Now, innovation coaching, aligning need and demand. This is what I would like to take you through for the next 10 minutes. And what we see is there is a lot going on in terms of support for small and medium-sized enterprises. We have the Horizon 2020 program. Within Europe, we have on national basis numerous activities. We have on regional basis, on local basis, numerous activities to support small and medium-sized enterprises. Is it enough? Is it the right thing we do? Considering the fact that some people believe that every day in China 10,000 SMEs are established, every day. Now, if these 10,000 SMEs in China just produce the food to go in Beijing and other major cities, they might not affect Europe. But I guess many of those SMEs are not just producing food to go. They are looking into high-tech industries, into value chains that are global and that are connected. And if we look into that, then it's probably very good to see what is actually the innovation capability of SMEs in Europe. What is their digital readiness? And that's what we have developed, initiated by the European Commission, a benchmarking on innovation management. And as of next year, you will also find a benchmarking on digital innovation readiness. This is an online tool that every SME can use in order to compare their innovation management capability with those of their peers. They can decide, is it in my industry, my size class, and so on. And then you will see, as an entrepreneur, how do I perform in terms of innovation management? And as Christian said, how do I grow my company in terms of revenue, in terms of profit, in terms of number of employees? And how do I compare against the others? Are they faster? Are they more effective? And for policymakers, of course, this gives insights on what kind of areas in innovation management do we need to support in order to enhance the capabilities. And we have seen, especially in Eastern Europe, that management capabilities are not perceived as a value. And that's a problem. So if I'm an engineer, people would understand, okay, he or she is developing some technical new things. If I'm saying I'm a manager, then they will ask, what are you doing? And that's the perception. And that's something where we need to show that innovation management is creating value and is creating capabilities. Now, when we looked in our database of more than 6,000 companies across the world, what we see is that many small and medium-sized companies get old before they get big. So when you look at those that are 20 years old, we still have a high number of companies in our database that have less than 20 employees, being 25 years old. Now, we are not saying that every company needs to become the SAP or the Google of the next 20 years or the Siemens in the next 100 years. But what we are saying is that if a company wants to succeed in the future, they need to innovate. And they also need to think in terms of what kind of digital innovation do we need to incorporate in order to survive in the future? With our database, we cannot count those companies who do not exist anymore, that have been established maybe 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago. And I think that's quite a high number. And this is the number that we would like to reduce, that companies disappear from the market. What we would like to achieve is that those companies that are established today are flourishing in 5 years, and 10 years, and 50 years' time. Now, what do these companies need? And here we see a gap. We ask in a little survey enterprises, intermediaries, and policymakers, what do you think are the most important support measures to enhance innovation management capacity? And what you see is that the intermediaries say, for SMEs, it's funding as a second place, and as first place, it is the coaching and support in developing innovation management capacities. But if you look at the SMEs, what they think they need most urgently, it is funding and networking. And now take the last row and look at what the policymakers said, what they think the SMEs need. It's not funding in first priority, it's consulting and to some extent also networking. So when we look at what is perceived as need and what we look at what is perceived as demand, there is a gap. Now, when we talked to some of the intermediaries whom we had in our survey, they said we need to increase the awareness of SMEs regarding innovation management capabilities, raising the awareness that this is required, and therefore that's why we promote very much the coaching and consulting. Now, how do you convince a SME that they need this if they think what we need is money and network? You need to show the business impact of those support services. And these business impact from an entrepreneur perspective means, how can I manage my company in a way that I can grow or at least maintain the level of business that I have? And this is, of course, by developing the capabilities. And that's why we have established a comprehensive training scheme to enhance innovation management capacity, not only on SME management level, but also on the level of those who support those SMEs in developing their innovation management capacity. And you see that we go through all the dimensions of innovation management, starting from innovation strategy, because what we see, a lot of companies in the SME sector do not have an innovation strategy. They are rather reactive, rather responsive to what their customers might ask them to do, which of course creates the risk that they don't develop a core capability in innovation, where they have a unique selling proposition. And that means that they are rather exchangeable. And then we look into the question now, what is the organization that helps to translate this strategy into action? And then when we look in the action, the process from collecting ideas, developing them in new offerings, and very important, commercialize those new offerings so that we can leverage all the enabling factors such as funding, such as access to market, and so on. So that's where we look into, and Stefan can tell a little bit how this training looks like, as he has gone through some of those trainings. And finally, what we also think what could help SMEs is if they incorporate what we call an innovation manager. So this could be a young university graduate who then says, okay, I will be in charge of managing the innovation life cycle in that organization. I will be in charge of integrating the functions of that SME and align it to the innovation activities and innovation strategy. And I will be the person in charge who drives digitization in this SME for innovation. And finally, it will be the interface to the external partners. And we see in our database that very young companies, 3 to 6 years old, they have a very high ratio of partners funding that company, of course. Now, if those companies get older, the level of, or the number of partners funding this company is reduced for the sake of partners who help innovate in that company. So we see this shift that also Christian mentioned, that depending on the life cycle of that company, you need different and more customized support services. I was asked to also give some policy advice. Now, I don't feel empowered or entitled to give policy advice, as I'm not a policy maker, and I know that there are some requirements for policy making. But what we see is that, and this is our strong belief since we started with the Improve initiative, that you not just can work on SME level, you need to incorporate the entire, what we call, innovation ecosystem. Because an SME is embedded in a value chain. And this value chain means incorporating also large companies and other small companies. It also requires to incorporate the financial investors. So if they don't understand how to finance innovation, and if they step out too early, think of biotech where you have 15, 20 years of development. So I need to have an investor who has this long-term perspective. On the other side, you have the business advisors, consultants, intermediaries. And what we see is that across Europe, there is a huge heterogeneity in terms of understanding of what innovation management means. And when we started 10 years ago with Improve, and I was talking to some consultants, they were laughing at me saying, you want to benchmark innovation management? Innovation is something unique, you cannot benchmark. And I said, I don't want to benchmark the innovation, the output, but what I would like to benchmark is the capabilities, the management of innovation. And I think with the results that we have received, this is quite interesting and quite valuable for the companies, especially for the SMEs. So my advice is make sure that everybody in the innovation ecosystem is up to date in terms of their capabilities to contribute to enhancing this ecosystem further on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Eva. I think the key words we got out lesson, we need innovation management inside the companies, new capabilities, which is crucial. This is one lesson I got from your speech. The second one is we cannot concentrate only inside the company. We have to work outside as well, which is the ecosystem. This means quite complex issues. I heard as well, it's not easy to mobilize SMEs to bring them on board. This leads now to Adela, the next speaker. They did it on a regional level. Let's see how she did it. Adela.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Adela Hradilova, and I work for. Okay. No. Okay. Could you please put? Okay. Just like back. Anyway, okay, I work for JIC. It's the Regional Innovation Agency, which is based in Brno. And for some of you who don't come from Slovakia, just to show you where we are situated. So we are, we are very close to Bratislava. We are very close to Vienna, not so far from Prague. So just for you to know where do I come from. Maybe also something about our region, because I will be talking about the regional innovation ecosystem, and I will be mentioning some numbers and some figures. And so for you to have some perspective how big we are, we just have 1 million inhabitants. So the numbers I will be talking about are not so high like on EU level. And I will be really talking from the point of view of someone who works on daily basis with SMEs in different life cycle stages, as Christoph mentioned. Before I start, okay, no? This is actually the pyramid we sometimes use to explain what we want to achieve as JIC. We were established back in 2003, and we used to work with startups mainly. And what we want, so you have a lot of people coming with different ideas. Sometimes they are crazy, sometimes they are very good. And what we want to achieve is basically from startup or from the proof of concept to have some startup companies established. Then we want to move them to become middle-sized companies. And if some of them succeeds and becomes the important large company, we are really very happy. We already have a few examples like that. If you see the company name Ysoft, it's actually a startup. It's one of our first startups. It started back in 2003. If you have Konica Minolta printing machine in your office, I'm pretty sure you have the Ysoft software inside, because it helps to manage the printing and everything. Now they have more than 250 employees. They have branches all around the world. So we would like to have more companies like this. And they are very well incorporated into our innovation ecosystem. They established Ysoft Ventures, so they are actually now investing into our startups. So it's like a closed cycle. As JIC, we have 4 different programs for companies in different life cycle stages. So basically, we have 3 programs which are dedicated to startups. So it's JIC Enter, JIC Startup, JIC Master. I'm not going to talk about the details because I have only 8 minutes left, so I just don't want to bother you. If you want to know more, just come after this session and I will explain what are these programs about. Today I will speak about JIC Platin. It's actually business coaching program for older companies, meaning companies which are older than 3 years. And we were really inspired by the program they have in Switzerland. So you will hear now a lot of terms Christoph mentioned before, because we use the same methodology. So this is the life cycle stage model you've seen before. And basically, so these are the 3 programs for our startups. And then we have the JIC Platin, which actually should cover the companies which are either in expansion stage, consolidation stage, renewal stage. And you will see it's not so pretty clear, but it works. We are publicly funded organization, so we don't have all the capabilities, knowledge and experience inside. So we managed to establish a quite, I would say, in regional terms, quite wide network of different experts we work with. So in total we have 98 experts we are working on daily basis, and we have 46 which work as a coaches for JIC Platin program. If you want to become an expert, JIC expert or JIC coach, it's not like you come and we accept you. There is a kind of accreditation process behind. So, and what we are actually looking for is your business experience, is your coaching experience, and it's your motivation. Because as I said, we are publicly funded, so we cannot actually pay you as much as you would be paid on the market. And I have very nice example. Like 5 weeks ago, we organized something which we call JIC Expert Camp. More than 30 experts took part in this event. And we were just, it was a kind of training for them, to have a similar attitude, similar approach. But but there was a lot of time when we were discussing the different things, and experts actually told us, okay, we have a lot of experience, we want to share it, we want to help somebody, and we also want to give something back to our society. For me, being from the post-communist country, this was really very surprising argument, and I was very happy to hear it. So, JIC Platin. If you remember, I said we were established back in 2003. So our startups became old by 2013, so they were like 10 years old, and we didn't have any proper program for them. So we were so there was a demand from our SMEs. Okay, we would like to have a program because we face a different types of the problems, and we really need help. There was also a demand from the regional government, which is the main funding body for us, and there is not enough high-quality advisory available in the Czech Republic. So we were really thinking, okay, we have to establish something which would help older companies, the companies which are older than 3 years. Because we know we are not the best ones in Europe, so we were looking for some kind of the good practices around Europe, and we went to Switzerland, where they run a very interesting program for us, which is called Platin. And so we went there, we sit together, we checked how they do it. We actually took the same methodology. We brought it into the Czech Republic, to my region. You can imagine that, okay, Switzerland is on different level compared to the Czech Republic. So we actually had to modify the program. We had to accommodate it to the local needs, to the needs of our local companies, which we did. We have some different features, but it works quite well. And I think I can say that quite often in the Czech Republic we work as kind of a testing laboratory. So we bring in some new practice, we try to implement it, and if it works, then it's adopted on the national level as well. So we are kind of, guinea pigs. Everything is tried on us. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we launched the JIC Platin back in 2014. And this is a very important feature. It's done under the umbrella of the Regional Innovation Strategy. So it ensures the stability of the financing and stable support from the regional government and from the city of Brno. We receive financing from the regional government, we receive financing from the city of Brno, and we receive financing via Enterprise Europe Network as well. And the methodology, background methodology we use is the SME Empower Open Knowledge. And yeah, I shouldn't forget this feature. Before we actually opened or launched JIC Platin, we looked at innovation only from the technical point of view. Now our perception is much broader, so we consider innovation to be added value for the customer and for the company. So it's not only this technical innovation point of view. This is how our program is actually set up. So we have some criteria for the companies. Of course, we don't work with every SME. SME has to be based in South Moravia, obviously, because we are funded by South Moravian region, so we don't want to finance companies from Bohemian part of the Czech Republic, or from Prague. Unfortunately, we don't have enough money for that. The company, it has to be a technological company. It can be advanced, it can be low-tech, it doesn't matter. The company has to have its own product, and it has to be at least 3 years old. How we actually work: we have the system of the so-called key account managers within JIC. This person always goes to the SME, makes the needs analysis of the company. They prepare together the business innovation roadmap, and then the key account manager is responsible for selecting the proper coach for the needs of the company. And we have 2 phases. I think this is the biggest difference from the Swiss Platin, because we have only 2 phases, because we are not so well developed. And just now, some results. I have only 2 minutes, so I will be very fast, sorry. When you look to the size of the companies, we work mainly with the small companies. So I would say 77% of the companies have less than 50 employees. If you look at the age of the companies, 90% of them are older than 5 years. And what's quite important for us is also the ownership of the companies. So we do prefer to work with the companies with 1 or 2 owners, because we had a few cases where we had like 6 or more owners, and then it's quite difficult actually to make a decision, to reach the consensus, and it's very difficult for the coach to manage such a huge ownership structure. So if we go back to this life cycle stage model, majority of our companies actually goes from expansion stage again to expansion stage, from upscaling to expansion, and then we have some companies which go from project to project stage again. If we look to this business innovation tree, the biggest needs is when you go to the internal resources of the companies. So that's something which is very hot issue for our SMEs. Results so far, I said we launched the program back in 2014, but we actually started before. We started back in 2013. It was a kind of a pilot phase. Because we work with companies a lot, so we have some companies which really trust us. So we tried it on them, it worked, so we decided to launch the program. Back in 2014, we did 35 needs analysis, and 14 cases were finished. There were more cases ongoing, but only 15 was finished by the end of 2014. You can see the similar trend in 2015. Okay, this is the map of my region. It's probably not very important for you, but it's important for us, because our regional government wanted us to work with the companies which are not based in Brno. They wanted us to work with the companies which are located in border areas of my region. And as you can see, we achieved some outreach to further parts of our region. Still, majority of the companies is located around the Brno, but we work a lot with the companies which are outside Brno. What's important is the satisfaction of your client, whether he is satisfied with the coaching or not. And we use, for evaluating the quality of the service, we use the Net Promoter Scores, and we have 93% satisfaction. It means the promoters are the companies who would recommend this service to his friends. So I think it's quite high. And what are the biggest benefits for the companies? These are the words from the companies. So basically, the coaching helped them to improve their internal processes, their strategy, and relations with the customers. And this is my last slide. These are some kind of the recommendations. Because we live in dynamic environment, the development is really very fast, and once you set up a program, it's not enough. You have to watch the needs of your companies, and you have to modify the program so it really reflects what's needed by the SMEs. So we decided to apply for one of the Horizon 2020 call. It was peer learning of innovation agencies. We had partners from Latvia and from Austria, and we had on board also our colleagues from Switzerland, and we put together some recommendations which are now available in so-called design option paper, and you can see the recommendations here on the screen. So if you want to set up your regional business coaching scheme, you need 6 building blocks. You need the regional commitment and stable financing, of course, because if you rely on the project funding, then you have to modify your program, not according to the needs of the SMEs, but according to the needs of the program, and it's not good. You really need implementation agency with a leader. So you need an agency which is already quite well incorporated into the regional innovation ecosystem, but you also need a person within the agency who is able to pursue the idea. He considers this program to be his baby. You need a common understanding of business innovation approach, so not to look to the innovation only from the point of view of technical innovation. You of course need access to SMEs, and you already have to have some relations to the SMEs so you can test the program on some of them. You need access to the coaches. This is very important, and it was very important for us because we don't have all capacities internally. And you need working regional innovation ecosystem, because if you don't have it, it doesn't work. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Adela. I think it's a good example. You did it within 2 years. You have this regional ecosystem. You reached your targets. You have high satisfaction, and you are growing. And your last message I got, it is transferable. Great. Now let's go to the next step, actions. We need the coach. Stella, tell us about stories about you as a coach.
Yes. Stories. Good morning. Set this thing up. Yeah, I'm an engineer, entrepreneur, and retired businessman, basically. I spent 25 years in technology companies, mainly electronics and IT, software type businesses. And then in 2002, for something a little bit less stressful, I became a business coach. And I was the resident entrepreneur or resident mentor, depends how you want to describe it, for a network of incubators. We had 6 incubators. There's only 4 pictures there, but they all look the same, believe me. And we had about 10,000 square meters of rentable space, over 200 companies generally resident in them. And I also supported a university, both student spin-outs and some academic spin-outs as well. So I started that in 2002, I retired in 2011. So I've got quite a lot of scars and interesting experiences from working with these companies. Many of these companies over that period of time I actually worked with right through from startup, through the valley of death as it's well known, right through to venture capital raising and final exits in quite a few cases, and also quite a few that died on the way, particularly in the valley of death. So quite a few stories. The first thing I want to pick up on, I'm a big fan of Dilbert. I don't know how many of you look at Dilbert, but it's I find the guy quite amazing. I mean, it's sort of Peter Drucker quality in 5 seconds, and you get a new one every day. And I think this slide sums it up very nicely. The number of times I've had guys come to me and they've got this amazing idea. They've usually not researched the market at all. They've got no idea how they will fund it. And of course, at that point in time, it's not worth anything. So the key to the successful businesses is all about building the team and the actual execution. Now, coming on to the coaching, these figures are taken from a study that was done in the UK it was over about a 7-year period, although I notice I've quoted 10 years, it was actually less than 10. It was about 1,000 companies that were tracked across the UK, supported by various government funding organisations. And there was this very clear message that the companies that embarked on their ventures with no mentor or coaching support of any kind failed quite early. And from my own experience, they failed from quite simple things, actually, surprisingly simple things. Well, simple to people with experience, but of course, a lot of the startups, and even if they're not all necessarily people in their 20s. I work with startups where there were people in their 40s and 50s, but even after a longish career, quite often they didn't have the full skill set to run a business. They might be complete experts in sales and marketing or complete experts in a technical sector, but they wouldn't have the full skill set. And so they would confidently go forward and fall flat on their face on quite simple things that a coach would would advise them, would guide them so that they would avoid this. So this survival rate increase is quite dramatic. Now the other thing that came out of the study was the amount of growth. The businesses, as they transition from the startup phase through the various funding levels, the guys that were taking the coaching were growing much more rapidly. Some had quite dramatic increases. They were tenfold increases in turnover in a year when they were given guidance from basically people with grey hair that had been there and done it a few times. So I know Christoph is very keen on this transition issue. As they move from one part of the cycle further down, they go through the funding and they start to scale up. There's real benefits in taking coaches in. This is sort of a dummy's guide really to what you can do to help businesses as a coach. So I'm skipping through several points quite quickly. Clustering's been mentioned. I hadn't realised that clustering was going to be covered in this conference, but I went to one of the events yesterday and there was quite a detailed discussion on clustering. And what I've observed, first thing I would say is you can't make a cluster. Now people might recoil from that, but I don't really think you can actually create one, and we've certainly had our various governments have tried to create one. They'll say, oh, we're going to be experts in semiconductors, or we're going to be experts in lasers. We'll spend a load of money and build a technology centre, and that will be a cluster. Well, of course, it doesn't work like that. So my experience of clusters, they generally grow up around a very well-established and usually quite old institution of some kind. Now, I made a note of a couple of examples. I was in France working with a company just outside Nice last year, and as we went to their site on their incubator, I realised there were quite a lot of telecoms companies. Their names are on the name board. So I said, "Why are there so many telecoms companies here? It looks like you've got a cluster." And they didn't seem to understand why. And I said, "Well, what was here 10 years ago, 20 years ago?" And it turned out that it's the site for an organisation called ETSI. Well, ETSI are like the global standard setters for telecoms. And so what had happened, all the various telecoms type companies, the Ericssons and Nokias, had all flocked into this area to set up business. So they were conveniently at hand for meetings at ETSI, and it was quite clear that's what had happened. So in the UK, we've got similar things around Cambridge. Life sciences are built around Cambridge. Just outside Bristol in the southwest of England, there's a semiconductor cluster, and that's an interesting one because there is actually no long-established organisation there, although the government probably 25 years ago, they decided that they would fund a semiconductor industry through a company called INMOS. INMOS was entirely state-funded. It was a disaster as a business, but when it failed, they'd already recruited lots and lots of semiconductor experts into that area, and most of them stayed because they got their families there. So in fact, there's the ghost of INMOS, I would call it. So it was an establishment that was important, but it's no longer there. But the people and the staff and the skills that went in have actually set up lots of semiconductor-related businesses, computer-aided design systems for silicon wafers and so on. So clusters are important. I mean, one of my recent startup companies I worked with, and I was an investor in it as well, this was a social media company. As soon as we got the thing started, I said to the founder, the techie guy behind it, I said, you need to relocate this to Brighton. Brighton on the south coast of England is where all the social media type businesses are. So we immediately moved the business to Brighton to be surrounded by similar people and to be able to recruit similar companies. So if you're working with companies and there's an obvious cluster somewhere, within a reasonable travelling distance or a relocation distance, it's sensible to move them into the cluster area. There are lots of benefits. Networking. Generally, the companies don't do enough of it, and some of the engineering-led companies are very shy of networking. They don't see the point. They'd much rather sit at their terminals and bang out code than go and meet people. And you need to persuade them to stop doing that and spend some time networking. It's a great way to find customers. It's a great way to find new staff. And also, if you're clever and you go to the right networking events, you can find investors. just checking my notes here. One interesting visit I did a few years ago. I went to MIT in Boston in the States, and they've got a great entrepreneurial program there. And the good news was there was really nothing they were doing that was any cleverer than what we were doing in the UK, or indeed that Horizon 2020 are doing now. So they weren't years ahead of us in any particular area, except one. I went to an event one evening, a sort of a social event where we were going to meet students from one of their degree courses, and the students all came in smartly dressed, confident, with business cards. MIT gives them a for-life email address, so they've got their name, I think it's the year they graduate, .mit.edu.com, whatever it is. So they'd all got proper business cards with their name on, a little bit of detail about their course, and these young people came up to me. We'd all got badges on, so they knew who we were. They came up to me and they said, nice to meet you. They'd present the card and they'd say, how was your travel here today? Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, have you got a drink? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, and they say, well, what I want to do when I graduate is I want to start a company in graphene production or whatever. So these students had actually been coached by the university in how to network, how to approach external people, people in suits basically. They knew what to do. Now, I go to a lot of UK universities and I can tell you they're a mile away from that. They turn up sloppily dressed, which doesn't look great in a business situation. They're not confident. They've certainly got no business cards, and they've not been told how to interact with, if you like, grown-ups from outside the university. So that's the one thing I took away, and I recommended my local universities actually taught this to the students. And some of it was carried on, but they lost momentum on it. But that was the one great thing I picked up on the networking. So at the time I'll move on. Right, professional support. The companies need the best quality of professional advice when they can least afford it. My analogy is like teenagers. Asking a teenager to make a sensible decision about a degree course and a career, you're asking them to make the most important decision of their life when they're least able and least equipped to make the decision. So the startup companies, they know they can't afford top-grade lawyers and accountants to advise them. So they just get along without any advice, and no surprise, it catches them. A year or two down the line, they find that they've not set up share option schemes at all, or if they set them up, they've not set them up properly, so they lose the tax benefits. They don't know anything about employment contracts, so they often don't have employment contracts, then if someone leaves. So there's a whole range of things that screws them up because they couldn't afford the advice. Now, what I did in my incubator network, because it was a big network, we had big scale. Right at the beginning, I went around all the professional services companies in the area, the accountants, the lawyers, and I gave a pitch to them saying I wanted support on the basis it would be free gratis support, but they would effectively get filtered leads. They would be getting qualified business leads. So I would be filtering the companies that I thought were worth sending to them. And the deal was they would provide free advice on the basis that the companies would stay loyal to them and go back to them and they would be paid at some point. The other thing I said was I only wanted one accountant and one lawyer. So I effectively played them off against each other. We got the Grant Thorntons, the Price Waterhouses, Deloitte's, everyone's there. So I mean, on the accountancy side, I stayed with Grant Thornton, and in fact, I still have a great relationship with Grant Thornton, and that's from 2002 I did that. And they saw lots of my companies. They gave great tax advice, all for free, but they got 2 AIM flotations out of it, the stock market flotations, where they got significant fees. So if you've got a professional services business around your incubators, you should try to do these deals, because the argument is they're getting qualified leads. You're effectively doing their marketing for them, but you must not send basket case companies to them, or they'll never help you again. So that's like a dummy's guide to how to get professional services for free. I'll just check my notes. Oh yeah, the other thing is contracts. I've just come back from a coaching assignment in Eastern Europe with a absolutely fabulous company that they'd been spotted by one of the very big corporates, a huge German manufacturer, who could see that this product that they're developing would fit their portfolio. And so they'd been approached by this multinational with a proposal basically a licensing proposal. And they were really in awe of this. They couldn't believe their luck that this huge corporate had approached them and said, we'd really love to incorporate this in our product range. We'll manufacture it for you, and so on and so on. So I asked them to let me see the heads of agreements, and the heads of agreement were unbelievably terrible for the company. They were about to assign all their future intellectual property to this large corporate. Now this is a household name. I'm out of time, I'm being told. Okay, this is a household name. So even though their website says they've got a great corporate ethos and they're nice people, in reality the lawyers will try and get the best possible advantage for their corporate employer. So the companies do need seriously good quality legal and finance advice at the beginning. Right. I'm not going to spend time on the funding one, I don't think. What I will say on the funding is the founder has to be numerate. You can't delegate it to an accountant. So when the founder does a pitch to investors, the investors will take them through all the various aspects of the business. They'll want the founder to be on top of the numbers. They'll want to know about their margins, their profitability, their capital requirements. The founder has got to be able to do it. So if you've got, say, an engineering guy that's the founder or a sales guy that's the founder, they must be trained. There's no shortcut to it. You have to put them on a course and train them in accountancy so they can read the accounts, they can explain the P&L, explain the balance sheet, explain the capex table for the funding requirements. They must be able to do it. There's no substitute. Staff. This is the last slide. This goes back really to the professional advice. Most of the companies I see have not set up proper share option schemes for their key staff. Very often I see equity splits that are quite unfair. Two founders, one with 95%, one with 5%, not on. So they need to be told that it's not on. They're simply going to lose the guy that's got the lower share because he hates every minute that every time he reflects on it that the chief exec's got 95%. He's a CTO with 5%. And I've had companies where they've lost the key staff as a result of this. So all these things need to be done at the beginning. They've got to get it right at the beginning. I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Arthur. I think also some lessons here. Professionalism is a huge issue. Also from the support network ecosystem. You underline the partner network opening up. They have to learn about that. And of course, you have from the frog's view a lot of practical experiences, what is relevant staff and all these kind of things. Yeah, it's good sense, but needs to be professional. Now I would like to hand over to Pierre. Here's another issue, how to scale up such a coaching system. How did you do, Pierre?
Thank you, Christoph. Good morning, everybody. Maybe I will start with a consideration from my experience so far in this conference. I think we are a bit kind of a different animal. So I've heard about a lot of things starting from innovation, research, and then moving to exploitation. I think with the SME instrument, we are talking about business. And the companies that are successful in our programs are the ones that are starting from the need. So in a way, with the H2020 program, we have 70+ billion that we use for the research, and we have 3 billion that we use for starting from the need to bridge the gap. So that's an interesting view to start from. No. Yeah, the SME instrument, very young program, so we are just flying. We started 2 years ago with a head of unit and a coffee machine. Now we are close to 60 persons working for the SME instrument, and we are drinking a lot of coffee. What we have achieved so far, we have received something like 25% of the proposals of all H2020 program, so nearly 30,000. We have a bit more than 2,000 projects, that means 2,000 SMEs that are funded by the program. A little bit more because not all of them are single SME, we have some consortium. We've been using close to 800 million euros so far, and we have already nearly 900 projects that are finalized. So we already have some view on a full cycle of a project. So what we are looking for, we are open to single SMEs with an idea to disrupt the market. So we are looking for game changers. We talk about TRL 6. We need these companies not to come only with their innovation and their technology, but we need them to have a very clear picture of what is the market they address. What are the competitors on the market? So at the beginning we had in proposals things like the market will grow exponentially. Well, it doesn't work like that. You need to have concrete figures. And we want people who have clear ambition to grow at EU level. That involves also a clear implementation plan, what they are going to do in the 2 years period between the product funding and the time their innovation is brought on the market. What do we offer to this company that we want to capture? So we have the first level, we have a grant. So we give them 50,000 euro for a feasibility study. The one that are the most successful, we finance up to 2.5 million for demonstration, market replication, so going a bit deeper in their study. But we believe that only with a grant we wouldn't have that much impact. So to the grant we had business innovation coaching. So from the previous speakers you've had a little bit of feedback of what it can bring, and we have the strong conviction that this is adding a lot of value. So what do we mean by business innovation coaching? There are programs where grants are given and the coaching is provided. Usually you recruit a number of coaches and they deliver their coaching scheme. One coach might be taking a different line than the others, and we were willing in our approach to have a kind of wider commonalities in the way we address business innovation coaching. So we have three things mainly on the methodology. We base it on the life cycle context. So the coaches is not entering a company that is just 3 years ago created with 5 people and scaling up to become maybe 20 in the next 2 years. He will not have the same approach as if he enters into a company that exists for 25 years, that is now making the business on volumes with low margin and is willing to renew its processes. So that's the context, very important. The other step of the approach is the business innovation tree, like we call it. It is based on the principle that in a company there are 4 ways to add value to your customer. It's through your offering, so the product or the services, or you find new distribution channels, new customers is the third approach, and the fourth one is processes. You innovate in processes, you make cost savings. So when we go into a company, the first thing that we do is we try to see where the company is on these 4 branches of the innovation tree. But we don't look only at that. We also look at the roots of the tree. So how do the company capture new ID for businesses? What are the resources of the company? What are the problematic of developing resources? Building qualification in the team, building human resource function, that kind of thing. Leadership, culture. And we also look at the way a company are partnering with others for the skills that they don't have inside. So it's also always make or buy decision. What do I do myself? For what do I make partnerships? And when we do this analysis on the business tree, the next step, because the resource that we have for coaching is rather short, so we have 3 days for a phase 1 project. We look at the situation of the companies, and we look at how strategically it is important for the company to develop one aspect, and we look at how prepared is the company for doing that. And we focus the coaching on the things that are both strategically important and where the company is less prepared. So typically, if the project is initiating from an engineering part, then there will be more work into, like you were saying, Arthur, in the business and the accounting part, just to give an example. Yeah, so what is business coaching? What do we do in common? What do we try not to do? We don't bring the value from outside. So we want to put the SME in the driving seat. So it's active listening. It's working together with the SME team to find solutions. It's very important also that we bring the holistic view. So try to bring the picture of the challenges ahead. And they're being critical with the SME team. So one typical example is that the manager you see has a lot of interest for the technology. Is basically technical in the mind, and you see that it doesn't have the kind of values to become a successful manager of a team, the CEO. So then you have to try to use the psychological approach to have him coming to the conclusion that maybe the company would be better if he develops into a chief technological officer role and he brings somebody from outside for being the CEO of the company. So what we do with the coaching is also we try to bring tools to the management team that they can later on use on their own. So we don't want to create dependence from the coach like a consultant would go and try to sell more hours of services. So we want the company to be on the top on the challenges ahead and also mastering new tools. One typical example of that is market segmentation. We have a number of projects where we see we have a convincing plan, but the market that they are addressed is maybe the first market they were thinking of. And if you put questions on how did you came to that market, did you try to find out about other markets, maybe you get through this approach a clear picture that basically, another market would be much easier to address first, and they completely change the perspective. So when we do this market segmentation one with them, they can do it again later in the team. So to conclude with the last figure on the bottom on the right, what we try to do with business innovation coaching is empowering the company, is empowering the management team, making them more prepared for developing further their projects. So what are the coaching services that we provided? We have basically 3 coaching services so far. So the first one is business development. So that is a service that the majority of the phase 1 project are taking. we have 70% of the services there. So this is understanding your market, your value proposition. That's the first level of analysis, I would say. The other services that are a bit less frequent is organizational development. And there, it's a completely different expertise. So we have a number of coaches that master the two aspects and even the three of them. But it's really a different expertise. If you are on the top of some of the markets, you can guide a company in this respect. But if the company is going through major changes in the organization, it's a different kind of competence, really. And the third one is partnership development, and this is another dimension, because there, to make a winning partnership, you need to understand the culture, the value of both potential partners, and bring them through a deal, avoiding the trap to bring the lawyer too quickly in the discussion, and get on a balanced win-win deal for the two partners. So that's the third service that we have. Looking ahead, oh my God, my time is off. Looking ahead, I think a fourth service that we could introduce is financial strategy, because we go, I think, a bit too quick into learning to the company or to make a pitch before talking to them about how to balance their strategy, when to get equity, when to get loan, and how to avoid the trap of losing the control of their own business. Results so far, and I'm going to be quick on that, but yeah, basically what we see from our companies, is that we have a big number of them that are in the upscaling phases. So the upscaling phases is when you are going from project to project to upscaling, and there we have a big majority of products in the ICT sphere. So the digitization is on the way. We have also a big number of companies that exist for longer, and there a big number of them are active in the manufacturing field. All across the board, the first thing they need and they are looking for is new customers and new distribution channels. We already have success with them through getting private investment. So with the first 500 million we have spent, our companies have attracted nearly 1 billion of private funding, and this is with just the grant and the individual business innovation coaching. What we are looking at for the future is to help them to accelerate their business. The picture that you see there is a picture from our team, basically at the end of the first SME Innovator Summit that we have organized in October. We had 600 SMEs in Brussels in the EC, and it was organized to create genuine networking between them. So roundtable, small groups, discussion on issue linked to scaling up, on a market to be addressed, pitching exercise with people from EBAN there. Very dynamic. Very much bottom up, a lot of enthusiasm, and for us this is the way forward. So I think that a number of people said that most of the knowledge was in the room. Peer to peer is bringing a lot to them. and that is really the way forward to develop with them. Yeah, I didn't make conclusions in advance on the slides, but my recommendation would be for the policymaker to look at what works, try to respect the SME and not bring them the knowledge from outside, and really when inventing new approach, keep it simple, keep it fast, don't make it too complex for the SME. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. I think we see that this is probably one of the first European Commission program which attracts SMEs strategically, and we have a very dedicated portfolio of services. It's the beginning, and we have ideas for the future. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now going back to Bratislava, how does this work in your region? Stefan.
Okay, Chris. Thank you very much. Okay. So thank you very much. I will try to tell you within something less than 10 minutes. I will a bit short on the presentation. Well, just to the interaction, and Business Innovation Center is a private consulting company established 25 years ago, back to 1991, and our goal is to promote business development and innovation within companies, but both within the regions, as in Slovakia as well. Slovakia is also just a region, just 5.5 million people, even the state. And we do a lot of activities, except of Enterprise Europe Network. I will come back to that. For example, development of technology transfer offices at the technical universities, development of smart specialization strategies in Bratislava region and other regions, and the national region, IPR consulting, access to finance, etc. And we do coordinate the Enterprise Europe Network, which is, as you see from the map, in between a worldwide network. Is not just a network of the European Union, but is a broader one. And the aim is to support innovation and business development within companies. The enhancement of the innovation process itself is a Horizon 2020 project, and the goal is the in-depth entrepreneurial discovery process, in-depth business innovation consulting. We used some standardized tools like SME Empower, Improve, and others. There are others, we are using just these one. And this support within the innovation process lasted for a couple of months. So how does it work? The first part is the identification of the proper companies, which is not as easy as this looks like. And the second step is to convince them that it is worth to invest time within the business and innovation management processes improvement. And then if they are willing to do so, we are performing an online questionnaire with them, and the companies will be benchmarked with the other ones from the respective sector, and based on the gap analysis we do propose measures for the companies in order to improve their innovation management, and which is a very important part of this process is the selection of the measures which will be implemented within the company. It's not easy because the implementation of these measures requires a lot of times and a lot of resources within the company. But this is a crucial process to choose the right measures and to implement them. And the last or for last step, we do support the companies within this implementation process, and the results will be measured, the impact. Okay, that I have mentioned already, I can skip that. So the results achieved so far, so we made that within the whole Slovakia, not just in the Bratislava region. More than 70 companies have been consulted so far, and in all relevant industrial sectors, which are automotive suppliers, mechanical engineering, process automation, robotics, ICT, electronics, biotechnology, and chemistry. Probably you know that Slovakia is almost half of the industry is car manufacturing and car supplying, and it's developing. So it's very important to work with the automotive suppliers. And so the management, in most cases, not in all of them, is willing to invest into the improvement of innovation management processes. So what is required by the companies is the innovation strategy development, is, as Pierre mentioned, which is important really to improve the business models, to find new markets, to come them. So we do understand the innovation strategy as a part of the entire corporate strategy. Yeah? And very often the attention is given to the development of new business models within the company, so they would be able to expand, because Slovakia is just a small country and they have to act internationally. Then they ask for idea management tools, research and development project management tools, access to finance measures, business models I have mentioned already, and which is very important, development of networking and partnerships. Arthur, you have mentioned the clusters, but also the networks, especially between the SMEs and the technical universities or research institutions. So what we have achieved so far, the upgrade of corporate and innovation strategy, which is very important. Intensification of external cooperation networks, shortening the innovation life cycles, innovation culture increase, enhancement of competitiveness and turnover and export increase. So about key account managers, we have discussed that here already, is for the beneficiaries of SM instruments companies. Unfortunately, we don't have them too much in Slovakia. Yes, so the results are quite limited. So we're not very happy about that, but these are the facts. And so the goal is to find coaches, and Arthur has explained us the role of the coaches, and that's true. If a company has a coach, the development, the entire development, not just the innovation development, is much more faster and efficient compared to companies who doesn't have. Of course, we are speaking about the SMEs. Large companies have these mechanisms. Yeah, but the SMEs very often not. Okay, and the last remark, probably we are speaking about the reindustrialization of the European Union. So speaking for Czech Republic or Slovakia, we are quite happy because the portion of the industrialization is increasing. And we are very close to Germany. And there are some reasons for that, but within the whole European Union is the problem more complex. But we think that what is most important are people, is the skilled and motivated labor force, and a good education, especially in technical domains of young people, and also winning them to be active as technical engineers. And stronger SME support, not just within the R&D phase, but also within the manufacturing and marketing phase. Yeah, and perhaps the final conclusions, our experience, we have been positively surprised within these more than 70 companies, really companies who are SMEs, who are really advanced, making development in Slovakia, manufacturing perhaps in China and selling in America. Yeah, that was very, very interesting knowledge for us. And the technology-based SMEs are developing fast, logically aimed at the automotive industry or other types of industries, for example, steel industry, etc. But the tendency so far is quite positive, and we are very glad to have this project and to be able to be active directly within the SMEs. So I spared something like 3 minutes. Okay, so thank you very much.
You're highly efficient, Stefan, thank you. And I think this explains partly your success you have in Bratislava.
That makes me highly
No, I didn't say that. Let's say, I just take some highlights out. I think there is a strong convergence between the speakers, networking, and so on. But 2 points you rose, which is newer, is, I call it the absorptive capacity in companies. They have to implement action plans. So this may be another issue we have to consider in the future, if I take you well. And the second issue, the network is enlarged. You integrate the educational system, which becomes a critical issue for a region, for moving faster towards commercial success. So I think with this we get quite a broad picture of key issues, of keywords in the area of direct SME support. If I see now questions, I don't think, probably there is a timer inside our tablet. I don't see any written questions. Is there one question more than 0? If not, I think because we are under time pressure there, you will say some words now about the next step. There will be the plenary meeting. And I just hand over to our organizer. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for our speakers here in this panel. Goodbye.